First question, easy one. Over this lockdown period, can you just talk us through what some of the biggest challenges have been for the church, and then maybe a little bit for the challenges that you two have faced as well in this season?
Yeah, I think, church by its nature is kind of like it's a gathered group of people, isn't it? And everything that defines us as a church is who we are in our gathered environments. And obviously that's all changed. That's, we've not been able to gather. And I think that's been super challenging on a number of levels. I think when we, where just before the Prime Minister announced, the UK lockdown, I remember as a staff team, Pete, we gathered together on our usual Tuesday morning, and we'd already made the decision that we were going to shut services down. And then obviously the announcement came a bit later. And I just remember in that moment, there was like a Holy Spirit moment came upon us as a staff team. And it was kind of an invitation from God to grieve and lament the reality that we couldn't be together. And I think that was really precious, but important for us to do that. That actually did, people get excited about church being online, but actually I think it sucks. I think it sucks that we cannot be together. And I think there is a sense of lament and grief in what we're going through. So I think that was the first challenge, definitely, just trying to grieve the process.
Yeah, and I guess it was just the case of trying to get the balance right between the safety and well-being, of the staff and everyone that gives their time to volunteer in that. But also that kind of loss of wanting to continue to be a church that serves the community. So there was lots to kind of work through. And I even think maybe this far on, we're still working that out, because so much changes on like a weekly, if not bi-weekly basis. So yeah, I think it's been really difficult. And yeah,
I guess the other reality that dawned on us earlier on is that we've never led a church in a pandemic. And so I'm aware that we can make decisions as leaders and as a team of leaders where some people are going to be elated by those decisions, and some people are going to be really saddened by those decisions, which you could say is leadership. That's what leadership is like. I just think it feels more challenging in a pandemic like this. And as I say, none of us have ever led a church in a pandemic. No one's written a book about it yet. Well, they might have done by now, but so no one really knows what they're doing. That it feels like the playing field is leveled across the church as we respond to this, and I think that just makes decision making feel a lot harder, because you have this overwhelming sense of like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, and people are happy to let you know.
We don't mind.
But there is that kind of tension. So yeah, I think that's been challenging.
Yeah, and I think just what we we refer to as the missing. For us, it's like, there's groups of people we see staff, and we see that people are connecting online to some of the groups, but there are people missing. There are people that just don't relate in this season to everything that's going on, and just that thought that we have no idea really if they're connecting with someone, if someone's connecting with them, and that's been really that's really heartfelt, because we're quite a large church, so it's in the hundreds. It's a couple of hundred people, and just trying to, between handfuls of people, reach out to some of those and just to connect. Sometimes we hear back, sometimes we don't, and my heart is always just for the people. And so the missing, I think, I've found really difficult.
Yeah, I think as Tammy says, across all our sites, we think out of the 600 or so people that call Central Vineyard home, at least 200 we're not sure have connected on any level, which is a real challenge and quite heartbreaking, really, just to think, some of those people could go missed completely. And so we're trying to do our best to just try and make sure someone gets a phone call or is connected somehow in some way. I think a personal challenge would be just the daily roller coaster of emotions. And who knew you could feel that many emotions in one day? You just, that sense of like utter despair, right through to feeling hopeful, to feeling completely depressed. I just think there's such a roller coaster of emotions, and particularly moments like this. Once a month we gather on Zoom as a whole church, and seeing everybody's faces, it's kind of like there's this joy, but also this sadness that actually we're not in the same physicality. We're not gathering together as we normally would. And so, yeah, that has an emotional toll. Tammy and I celebrated 20 years of ministry this year, which is hard to believe because we don't look old enough. But
grey hair thing. I
don't think I've ever had a Sunday in 20 years of ministry where I've come to the end of it and think, was that worth it? Is that really making a difference? And some Sundays I close my laptop, which is just weird, isn't it? That's how you do church. You finish church by closing your laptop. And I think some Sundays I felt like, was that worth it? Did it really make a difference? Was there any significance to that in all of the noise that's going on across the internet? Was that little platform that we created worth anything? And that's quite challenging, I think, is that suddenly the ground rules for ministry has changed. So that's on a personal level.
And I think, I just find Sundays like this really tricky, just because seeing everyone's faces, and I'm just like filled with love again. But personally, homeschooling, I didn't sign up ever to be a teacher, and so I think that's been the balance of everyone who's homeschooling right now, and that's a huge chunk of our church, may also be working as well, and trying to work out how to homeschool, how to work. And for me, alongside the church, one of the biggest things for me is that I really want to take care of my family well, and there's so much conflict of that in this season. And we ended up getting to the point, because it was so hard, the balance, we kind of had to readdress it. We had to have conversations with the girls about what it is they wanted to achieve on a daily basis and how we could work that out as a family. I've always had a really, really high regard for the teaching profession, because I never did well at school. I was never able to get on that way, and so I've always really appreciated what they've offered, and in this season even more so, because I imagine teachers even in our midst are teaching, and they're also trying to do this with their family too, and so there's all those things that are conflicting, and I think it's led us to have days that are just lots of tears, not just from us, from the children as well, but also lots of hugs, and so it's all those things. And we're still even trying to work that out, and really kind of on a downward platform to the summer holidays, hoping that our children will have learned something towards their education next year.
Basically, our kids have gone feral.
Yeah.
So
no,
they wash like 3 times a week.
Yeah, and so we hope they can remember how to write, but no. Yeah.
So I guess they probably enough challenges.
Yeah.
I was listening to just before I move on, I was listening to a podcast the other day by with John Tyson in New York, and it was recorded right at the beginning of lockdown. And in it was really interesting to go back and listen to what he had to say at the beginning of something. Now we're like 4 months on, and one of the things that really struck me was how he said exactly what you said, Steve. This is, and we heard it a lot, this is an unprecedented time, and that can be overused, but it genuinely is, for the church especially. No one, when was the last plague? Beginning of the 1900s.
Yeah.
Someone's going to correct me on that but we've never been in a plague,
No,
or a pandemic, or whatever you want to call it, and he just said, look, we've never done this before.
yeah.
But this didn't surprise God. God knew this was coming, and God put leaders and people in place, all of us in place now, because he knew that we could deal with it, because he knew this was coming, and we are equipped to deal with it. And so that was just really encouraging, as hard as it is sometimes to do things and to do whatever we're doing, whether it be teaching our kids or stuff. God knew that this was coming, and God put things in place to help us get through. So that was just really encouraging. Anyway, okay, so as we've mentioned, some of the restrictions are going to be lifted soon. Have you been thinking about, or is there any chance that some groups could meet physically over the summer in some degree?
Yeah, I think what this season has revealed is that our connection to other people is vital. And I think probably before COVID, the majority of us probably took that for granted. I think I said early on in one of my Friday emails, which I wish I'd never started now because I'm going to keep up. But I think I said early on that community, our sense of community and connection. Yes, we all have. We talk about having a God-shaped hole, but we also have a human-shaped hole inside of us as well. And so, the current advice across the UK is that groups of 6 people can meet from different households outside at a 2 meter distance, so we know that that's the ground rules. And I think there's an opportunity in this season for us to kind of learn what it means to be people who have relationships again. For so long, it's kind of felt like it's been the church's job to provide us with a sense of community and social interaction. And what we've done is to try and answer that. We've put a program in place. We create programs so that we can have community. And I just wonder if in a season like this, what would it look like for us on an individual level to take responsibility back for our connection to others. And so I guess that's a long way of saying that maybe there is an opportunity for you as an individual to organize your own moments of connection with others. That it doesn't take the church to do that for you, if that makes sense. But actually we can all make contact with 6 other people and say, hey, why don't we go and hang out? Why don't we go and do something together in line with the restrictions that are in place? And of course, there are people in different predicaments. Some people are still shielding, and they're going to have to do that until the end of July, at least, I believe. But yeah, I just wonder if that is the case. I wonder if people could choose in this moment to create community for themselves with their fellow believers, people that they rub shoulders with on a Sunday morning or whatever, without the church being the provider of the religious goods and services. Maybe that is the case.
Yeah, and I think maybe there's opportunity out there. There are, that some of the government guidelines say, if you're on your own, you can create a bubble with someone else who's on their own. Maybe as a family, someone who's on their own, and you could, just ring them up and invite them in. Do they want to create a bubble? Don't be offended if they don't want to, but it's like there are opportunities for us as people to be the church without the label of the church, if that makes sense.
And so I think particularly as we go into the summer, if people want to get in groups of 6 and hang out and maintain the rules, that's the important thing. Then we'd really love you to encourage you to do that. It means you need to go onto Church Suite and look up those people's contacts, and you can drop them a line and just get connected in that way. But we would love, wouldn't it be great if we came out of lockdown and instead of trying to convince everybody to sign up to a small group, is that everybody's built this network of relationships that they just want to carry on the other side of this. So I think if people want to do that over the summer, great, that'd be wonderful.
Cool. Okay, so what about Sundays? Have you got any thoughts on? Well, hopefully Sundays will start again, meeting up. And have you had any guidance through maybe on how many numbers can meet up yet, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is the $1 million question, isn't it? I think this is probably the question that came back the most. Government guidance still isn't clear for churches or places of worship. I know the Prime Minister said something this week, but there was a comma after the word 30 or weddings. So it's still not sure. We're still not sure. What we can assume is any lifting of restrictions means we're not returning to normal that quickly. So it has been suggested that churches may be able to come back together with a restricted number. That number could be 30. We don't know because the government haven't confirmed that. But it would mean a number of things. It might mean that we have to create environments where people have to pre-book to come to church. Sounds fun. There'll be no singing or shouting, apparently. There'll need to be the use of face masks. There'll be no serving of refreshments, which means no coffee and donuts, which is a Vineyard's staple. It is our staple. No kids ministry, and we will need to continue to social distance. And so the problem with all of that for me is that doesn't feel like church. That feels like a group of 30 people awkwardly together in a room. And the truth is, right now, with the guidance that we have, we are not rushing back for the sake of it.
I think that when we come together as the church, when things change again, for me, it needs to resemble a family reunion. And actually, in the current state, that wouldn't be a reunion. And there's still people who are going to need a shield, and there are still people who would be in fear, because although the virus is receding, it's still in great number. And so we recognise that there are so many people in different places. There are so many people who are just actually not ready for that inevitable to happen. And for me, it needs to feel like we're having a reunion. So, the truth is we're not looking to rush back for the sake of it, because if the limit had to just be 30, we don't know. It means in Northampton alone, we'd have to do maybe 6 or 7 services. And, we wouldn't want to put that pressure on our volunteers and our teams to run some kind of raffle system as to whether you could show up or not. And the complications of that. And I think it would even still be true for our locations that have a smaller number than Northampton. Some of them would still have to do multiple services with the social distancing in place. But some of our other locations are also at the mercy of building hire. So we know a lot with some vineyard churches, they've already been told by schools not to expect to be in that space for the remainder of the year. And so there could be some technicalities with that as well. So it doesn't feel like a positive re-entry yet.
Yeah, so I think, you know, just painting that picture, that's one way that we could come back together. For us, that doesn't feel like a feasible option. And so we do feel, at least in the short term, whilst things are still a little bit unknown, that we're probably going to continue as we are across all of our locations. There is a possibility after the summer that maybe more groups of people can gather together in homes and gardens, which could mean maybe on a Sunday, I don't know, we plant 30 house churches. I don't know. You know, there's just so many variables. We're not completely sure what that looks like. But, you know, I think as Tammy said, when we do regather, we want it to be fully us. We want people to really experience what it means to come and be part of Central Vineyard. We want new people to feel welcomed. We want to be able to sit with people and talk with people. We want to be able to lay hands on people and minister to one another. We want to be fully us. And in order to be fully us, it may look like we need to hold back a little longer. And the other reality is, you know what? Do any of us want to be the church at the source of another peak? I'm not sure that's the kind of press coverage any of us want. And so, you know, I think holding back is actually the best thing that we can do. If you don't agree, maybe you should just pray for more wisdom, because apparently if you pray that God gives us wisdom, we will get it. So but you know, I think there is a time for us to hold back just a little bit longer, and I think that means that as we step into a post-lockdown reality, is that we're going to saddle a couple of different realities. I think there's the kind of option that we might be able to meet in homes and do like a house church thing. There's the possibility that restrictions might go a bit wider and we could meet again on a Sunday. But in all of that, we're probably going to have to maintain some sort of online presence as well. I know there's a question like that, isn't there, about that, but we're going to have some sort of online presence and maintain that as well. So.
Okay, cool. So the last question, do you want to talk briefly about some of the opportunities touched on, the continuing of online church, even when we're meeting? Do you want to maybe talk about that and other opportunities that you can see on the other side, whenever the other side is?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I really wrestled with online church. I think, you know, we all had to pivot really quickly when this all kicked in, and none of us had done anything in front of a camera, and we all felt really awkward, and, you know, still feel completely awkward, you know. And so there's an element of this that I really hate, you know, and talking to a camera with no kind of interaction or feedback is so different to preaching on a Sunday morning where all the Pentecostals in the room are giving you an amen, and, you know, certain people are looking asleep, you know, all those sorts of things. That the reality is that doing the online stuff has been a real steep learning curve for all of us, but we do recognize that that's opened a platform that we've never had before. You know, I think every time we put something out online, we get interaction with a whole bunch of people that we've never connected for, and probably never will connect with in a physical location. It's been wonderful to have like people like Andrew and Sandra Pansing, who are very much part of our church family, but they live in Greece, at least for a big portion of the year. And just for those guys to be able to be included in what we're doing. It's just been a wonderful opportunity. So I do think that whatever the outcome is, and however we might express ourselves as a church coming out of this, there's probably an arena where we need to do something online as well. I don't want what we do online to substitute. I don't want it to be like, oh, I didn't get up on time, I'll just watch it online in my pants. We don't want people to make that decision, but we do think the platform can increase if we stay online going forward. So I think that's probably a big opportunity. I think. Yeah, and I think the other opportunity, I said it in my email on Friday, that actually it does feel like this is a rebooting moment. I was chatting to some local church leaders in Northampton, and we just shared that imagery of rebooting, and just so happens we're in a town that is famous for making boots and shoes, and what does it look like for us as a church in Northampton and Northamptonshire to reboot? And I think there's an opportunity to, again, reboot around community, how we understand our need for connection to others. As I say, if church is primarily about our connection to one another, it's about family. Do we go back to just defaulting to the program being the thing that provides our sense of connection? Or are there some more organic opportunities for us to feel connected to one another?
I think this is like a huge opportunity. For many of us in this season, the pace of our life would have changed, some for the better, some for the worse. There's been moments of difficulty, but I think the one thing that this season has revealed is that continued hurried pace of life actually just makes very little difference in the world. When I think about some of our days and our evenings, particularly running children around and being part of this club and that club, there has been a little bit of loss, but actually the slowed down pace of life has really changed all of us, and it's revealed in us that that perhaps isn't the way we would have chose to live if we stopped to think about it for a moment. And I think that will be the same for all of us. We'll have discovered this new pace of life, and I think a new rule for life to come in the season that isn't just about continually running. And I think for some people it will be a real heart change. They'll have had a moment to think about all the things they've held back on for years. Well, that's my hope, is that people who have had dreams will have taken a moment to think about why they haven't lived in that dream, why they haven't set goals to attain the things that they really see on their heart, the things that God has literally made them to do and to be. And I just think there's an opportunity in that to think about why they shouldn't do what God's called them to do. And I just really encourage people even now to begin, if they haven't thought about the dreams that God's put in their heart, to even begin that journey, and to think, as life begins to change again, what is it that God's really called me to do? This is a moment to reset, to set new rules in life where we can really achieve the things that God has called us to do.
Yeah, and I think, and that's the nature of rebooting, isn't it? That I'm sure that, as Tammy says, there's many of us who have carried dreams in our hearts, or there's things that we think, I really want to change that, but we haven't. For whatever reason, we haven't pursued the dream. We haven't addressed those areas of change that we want to see happen. And I just think coming out the other side of something like this, there's an opportunity. Why hold back? Why hold back in this next season? What have we got to lose? Maybe it is time to just pursue those things that God has spoken to us in the quiet places. Maybe it is time to just think, those old habits, I'm going to put them to death. I'm going to choose to reorientate my life from now on, because actually a moment like this is probably a once in a lifetime opportunity. I hope anyway. I read somewhere that something like this happens like every 100 years, you know. So this could be our moment to really reconsider even the trajectory of our lives. Where are we going? What are we heading towards? You know, for some of you, that might be a sense of call to mission. It might be a sense of call to church planting, or stepping into leadership, or starting your own business, whatever it might be, that brings life and transformation to the community that God has called you to be in. And I think now's the time not to hold back, you know, not to be British in this season, but actually let's lean into the dreams of our hearts and see what happens. I think that's a wonderful opportunity, and we're really looking forward to that.
Great. We have no more questions, so time for lunch.
Yeah, well,
it is.
Yeah, and I think
Almost.
obviously we just miss you all so much. You know, we do miss that environment. We do miss even sometimes when it feels really hard and you spent an hour arguing with the kids before you turn up on a Sunday morning, and you've done this and you've done that, and you want to pull your hair out. You know, we miss coming and meeting and just being together to worship our Lord. You know, it's just one of the most amazing things, and we do really look forward to those days again, and we look forward to seeing the transformation. We assume as this time goes on, we kind of thought that we might miss lots of announcements and we'll turn up and there'll be like 10 new babies at church or something, you know, all those things that are being created in this time. But until then, I guess we're just at home eating biscuits, drinking cuppers.
I think it's important to know as well that the church isn't closed.
Oh, there's so much going on.
There's so much happening. There's so much taking place. You know, we're feeding hundreds of people each month through the food bank, and you know, Grow Baby as we started. I think, you know, we've had over 30 or 40 referrals in 2 weeks. You know, I think that the reality is the church is still very much alive and active, and this season is a season of interruption. It is a season where we can't be all that we're meant to be or express ourselves in all the ways that we want to express ourselves, but we're still very much alive and active. You know, we've baptized people online. We're doing alpha courses online. We're seeing people's lives still transformed and being impacted. We're still connecting with new people all the time. God's speaking and doing things prophetically in our midst, you know. So the church is very much alive and active, but we are looking to that day where we can be together again, and we can gather together again. And maybe when we make that choice to gather again, we will do it with a whole different perception of what we're doing. You know, it won't be this duty on a Sunday morning, I need to go to church, but it'll be like, I just long to be with God's people. I long to worship him with my brothers and sisters side by side. That it kind of feels like, you know, the air will smell differently on the other side when we get to that place where we can be together again.
So I think just in this time, you know, go look on the social media accounts, on the website, support Restore as much as you can in this season. There are appeals going on. Just be you in your neighborhood. Continue to reach out to your neighbors and your friends and serve them in any way the Lord asks you, and just know that we pray for you. We have we have a wider connection across the UK with some churches, and we know it's not just us praying for you in this season. We've got friends who pray for us and the church, across the country, and who are always excited to hear the news of things going on. So thank you for joining us this morning.